So first, I'd like to introduce the three speakers. The first one is Dr. Angela Cook. Dr. Angela Cook teaches Mandarin, Chinese language, and translation subjects. Sorry. Okay, so it seems that I'm blocking this. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Let me just introduce again. So Dr. Angela Cook teaches Mandarin Chinese language and translation subjects in the School of Languages and Cultures at the University of Queensland. In addition to a PhD in Chinese linguistics, she has several translating qualifications. So Angela spent several years living, working, and traveling in mainland China and Taiwan, where she was struck by the differences in language use on many levels, including lexical, philological, and grammatical differences, and developed a particular interest in context-induced multi-syntactic language change. She has published articles on lexical change and the use of grammatical markers in modern standard Chinese, and is currently investigating language change and language variation in the use of a number of grammatical structures, focusing both on how these structures behave in spontaneous spoken interactions and on how they're used in written translations. And also, in her spare time, she plays the bassoon in Brisbane Symphony Orchestra. So that's really an interesting hobby, right? Just the music ones. Dr. Chunxuan Shen is a Chinese language instructor and research assistant in the School of Languages and Cultures at the University of Queensland. And her research interests include research on code switching, Chinese as a heritage language, and teaching Chinese as second language. Her doctoral dissertation was entitled "The Role of Parents and Their Children's Language Maintenance, a Study of Chinese Migrant Families in Brisbane." So Chunxuan has published several articles in well-known Chinese journals and completed 2 Confucius Institute grants. She's currently co-teaching a large undergraduate translation course, Fundamentals in English to Chinese Translation, and several other courses within the Chinese discipline. Again, with a very rich education background, cross-discipline. Okay. Dr. Yen-Ying Lai teaches Mandarin Chinese language, translation, and applied linguistics subjects in the School of Languages and Cultures in University of Queensland. And she has been innovations manager of a cross-nation culture exchange program with a university in Taiwan. And she has been creator and technician of 4 flipped classroom and digitization projects. And she has presented at Teaching Innovation and Student as Partner symposiums and conferences, as well as publishing articles on literature and psychoanalysis. So welcome the 3 speakers. Okay, and so I believe that the 3 of them can bring us a very wonderful speech. Okay, so Dr. Chunxuan Shen, Yen-Ying Lai, and Dr. Angela Cook, yeah, please.
Okay, shall we start now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Good morning and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, me, Angela, and Yen-Ying are going to present on our project of converting our undergraduate English-Chinese translation course from a traditional to a flipped mode of teaching. This is our outline of, Yen-Ying? This is our outline of today's presentation. I'm going to start with the Australian background of our project, and then a bit of literature review, which provides the theoretical framework of what we are doing. Early this year, at the outbreak of the pandemic, Australia closed down its borders to China. Just 3 weeks before the semester started, we realized we had to take immediate responses to this lockdown and enable the large number of students who were stuck in China to continue their learning. And even the students who had arrived in Australia before the lockdown, they might not be able to make physical attendance as well for reasons of like quarantine, social distancing, and a number of restriction requirements in classroom. So this situation makes an urgent call of our project. How can we design and deliver this course in a high quality online mode? Of course, we have pedagogical, technical, and practical things to consider. But most importantly, we decide to adopt the flipped classroom method and use computer-mediated communication. So here I would like to briefly touch upon these two. And the flipped classroom model is a new instructional method which is getting popular in the Western countries. And I think started to have some applications in China too. Under this mode, homework activities and the lecture instructions are swapped in order, and the learning extends beyond the classroom. Students pre-learn at their own pace the knowledge and skills through short videos and mini lectures, and absorb new information before class, so that in class, students could devote more time to discussion, collaborative projects, and other forms of meaningful interactions with both the teacher and their peers. So here are the main points why we chose this model. And since this is an online course, we need to consider how we can maximize computer-mediated communication in the course design. Can be divided into asynchronous computer-mediated communication and synchronous communication, depending on whether it is real-time interaction. CMC is becoming one of the important trends of future learning. Face-to-face communication or learning no longer requires participants to be in the same space, such as what we are doing now, and not even at the same time. And various ways of using CMC can provide authentic and meaningful interactions via the internet with learners from all around the world, including our students stuck in China. And CMC can also help us to engage and motivate students and foster student autonomy. Now I will hand it over to Angela, our course coordinator, to share with you the specific design of our course and what we have achieved so far.
Thank you very much, Chunxuan. Thank you. So the course that we redeveloped and redesigned in semester 1 and then tweaked further in semester 2 is an undergraduate course in English to Chinese translation. So in this course, we teach our students basic translation theories. We also train them in basic translation techniques, and we expose them to a range of different text genres, including news articles, business and economics, science and technology, and literature. This is quite a large course. Typically, we have over 200 enrolments per semester. And as you can see from this graph here, it's also quite a diverse student cohort. So our students come from a range of different programs across the university, the most common ones being commerce, business management, arts, including languages, international hotel and tourism management, and communication. But we also have students from other disciplines as well, including music, IT, maths, and engineering. So it really is a large and very diverse cohort. And this means that our students come to us for a range of different reasons. Yes, some of our students are majoring in translation and interpreting or majoring in a language. Most of them are majoring in a related field, such as business or tourism. So they realise that improving their language skills will also improve their employability. But quite a few students are just filling an elective. So bearing in mind this large and diverse cohort, we have to ensure that our content is relevant and useful so that students really do hone their translation skills. We want to present the materials in an interesting and engaging way. And we want to think very carefully about our assessment. as part of our vision for this course, we had a number of goals, including providing students with more examples of each text genre, also explaining specific textual features of each genre in more detail, giving the students plenty of opportunities for actually doing translation work themselves, giving them authentic texts to work with, and also making the learning activities interactive and engaging. And because these were our goals, we decided that a flipped course design would be the best way to go. So our research questions, firstly, how can we convert a translation course into flipped mode? In fact, there's a lot of research, previous research on converting language courses to flipped mode, but very, very little about translation courses. Secondly, how did students evaluate our course and the flipped materials? How engaging did students find those materials? And thirdly, how effective was this mode of learning? Did students actually achieve the expected course learning outcomes? To support these goals and our vision for the course, we came up with quite a complex weekly structure. And you can see in this table, this is a snapshot of all of the different components which were included in our course every week. So you can see that it can basically be broken down into pre-class, in-class and post-class materials, with the pre-class and post-class materials being asynchronous. So students could work through those at their own pace in their own time. The online session was synchronous. Students had to come to a particular time slot. Of course, with that large number of students, we offered several different sessions. So let's just look at the pre-class materials first. We started off each week with an introduction video telling the students a little bit about the topic for that week. And we presented the flipped materials in a, we created and designed those materials within a particular platform. We chose Articulate Rise. And we might just show you an example. Yen-Ying, can you show an example of the, right.
Yes, you can use the example now.
Excellent, thank you. So week 4 here, you can see this is the first page that the students see when they open the flipped materials, and we always included a little bit of an introduction for them, just to get them thinking about the topic. And you can see the contents there. We've got an introduction, which is the video, and then 3 different lessons, 4A, 4B, 4C. Let's have a look at 4C. Idioms, piece of cake. And you can see the nice matching visuals. Let's click on number 1, which is a little bit of a discussion about why do we say a piece of cake? Why don't we say it's a piece of cookie? If you click on number 2, there's also a little bit about Chinese idioms, 塞翁失马. And then if you click on number 3, we can see a little bit of a description about idioms and how to recognize them. So in fact, a lot of the students who do this course are not English native speakers, so we guide them through the interpretation and correct understanding of the source text before they translate into Chinese. If you scroll down this lesson, you can see that we provided students with a few in-text examples of idioms, and we also gave them little exercises and questions. Let's Oh dear, wrong answer. Okay.
That's okay.
All right, let's continue. And again, they can click on these different tabs to find out a bit about the history of idioms and how to use idioms. There was a bit of a theme in this module, which was exploring or embracing the unknown. So you'll see a few sort of pictures relating to outer space. Okay, and then we also gave them a few more authentic texts. This one is quite nice here. You can see that it's taken from an online text. If students click on the link, they can then access the original website with the full text. And now we can go back to the lesson. Which just contained an excerpt of the text, a few more questions, a little bit more extra information, some more examples from authentic texts. And I think at the end of this lesson, there's also an embedded worksheet. So this worksheet students could download and prepare before coming to class. And then at the very end of the lesson, there's a recommendation to students to go across to the Blackboard course site and complete exercise 4C. So you can see in the content on the left, our lessons are numbered 4A, 4B, 4C. There were corresponding exercises in Blackboard, also numbered 4A, 4B, 4C. So if we return to the PowerPoint, where we were talking about the pre-class materials, you can see from that example that our flipped materials matched really nicely with the Blackboard exercises. So students could use the exercises to test their knowledge and understanding of the flipped materials. And once they'd completed all of that, they could do the pre-class quiz, which was worth 2% per week or 20% over the semester, before coming along to the online lecture, which we ran in more of a workshop style with games and quizzes and breakout rooms to work on translation exercises. After class, they could then do post-class review materials, also in Articulate Rise, and the post-class quiz was accessible in semester 1, but we changed that to an optional review quiz in semester 2. So now I'll hand over to Yen-Ying, who can tell you about the evaluation of this project.
So how are we going to measure the efficacy of the new course design? We've got two sets of data for us to evaluate and analyze. The first set is the formal and standard evaluation surveys that most students do at the end of the semester. And the second set is something we set up, a focus group in which we interview 4 students. With the student evaluation, we've got 12 questions, 2 open ones and 10 rated questions. Students will rate the different questions from 1 to 5. Out of the 10, we picked just 4 that are most relevant to our research and projects. And we tag them with the themes such as structure, content, learning, and overall impression. And this is the chart that can showcase the differences across 4 different semesters. As you can see with the dotted lines, they are the pre-flipped semesters, and the solid lines are the post-flipped semesters. You might be wondering about why the difference between the 2 semesters are both post-flips. We have some ideas. but maybe some of you have come up with something and would like to share with us at the end of the presentation. For the qualitative data, we select these questions to present to you. What were the best aspects of the course? Even before we flipped the course, even before we redesigned the course, the student reactions or responses are fairly positive. They found the course well structured, they picked up useful techniques, and they learned a lot from the course. Whereas for the 2020 semester's post-flips, the comments are fairly similar, like they enjoyed the well-structured course and they learned a lot, but there's a bit of theme change. As you can see, students comment that they like to have access to many learning materials. They like to have things under their control. They can control their own pace of learning. And with the keywords as self-study also tells us that student autonomy is something that students started to care about. This also indicates that our flipped classroom design is something that makes sense to them. It's something they are willing to embrace. With the focus group interview, lots of things have been mentioned before. For example, they like to have control of their own learning, and we have to pick the right kind of software or platform to make the materials interactive and engaging. What I want to draw people's attention to is more on the in-class activities. Students said that they loved group work, which is a bit surprise for them as well, because previously it hasn't been that easy to make sure everyone participates in discussions. In our view, group work encourages communication and negotiation skills. And in fact, these skills are employability skills as well. These are the skills you need in the real life workplace, like in the translation firm, like when you have to negotiate between different parties, such as the editors, publishers, your clients, and so on and so forth. Students also expressed that they like peer learning. So one student commented that I realized that translation is not about right or wrong. In fact, there can be many best answers to the same passage. I think this is what translation is all about. We have some conclusions and a few takeaway points for people who are interested in our project, or perhaps you want to do a similar implementation in the future. As you can see, we haven't stopped developing the course. We took in students' feedback. We made modifications by listening to their needs, by understanding their experiences. We would also like to know in the future, what can we do to firstly encourage students to come to class with their translation practice passages ready so they can plunge into discussion right away. And also when it's time to go back to campus, how can we ensure that the things we learned from doing online teaching, online learning can be transferred back to the classroom setting? And here we also listed 2 future research directions: multimodal CMC and a possibly successful model for other people to sample on. These are our references. And we would love to hear your comments and your thoughts. If you have any questions, please let us know and we can continue our discussions. Thank you all very much for being here with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Chunxuan, Dr. Angela Cook, and also Dr. Yen-Ying. And thank you all just for your really wonderful efforts in preparing this kind of course, right? Because I think you must have been exert great effort in preparing the material before the class. I mean, though all those material online, may I ask them is how long have you prepared for that? I mean, all those kind of idioms and all the related information. Yeah.
Right.
Can I?
Yeah, I'll answer that because I designed and produced the articulate module. I think that one took us maybe 14 hours from me and another 2 hours from Angela.
Yeah, that's really admirable. Okay, yeah.
I think every week it must have been at least 20 hours in total with the three of us.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
And
great
we were
devotion.
working flat out. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. So are there any questions or comment from our audience, from our teacher? Yeah, Catherine Shang. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so impressed by what you've created, you know, for the students. I can see how you really make your material really interactive and engaging. I think one comment I kind of understand is because of the COVID situation, you had to create this. Is that correct? Is that the right understanding? So the reason that you started flipping, is that because of the pandemic? Is that the right understanding?
We had already intended to do some digitization for this course anyway, but the project ended up being on a much larger scale.
Sure. Yes. So I was thinking, you know, one of the comment is that I think you've done great job. It will be really sad if, you know, just because if COVID gets better and you switch back. So I think one of my comment will be, it will be great to keep some kind of, you know, flipping sides of the translation courses. That's the first comment.
Yes,
And the second,
luckily UQ is really big on blended learning.
yeah.
So I think it's always going to be a combination of online and in class.
And just one clarification for students. Are they all Chinese? So your students are Chinese, is that correct? So they're
native speakers.
They're native speakers of Chinese and they're trying to, okay, that makes sense. Yes, thank you.
So there are quite a few students who speak maybe Cantonese or Yen as their first language, not necessarily Mandarin. And there are a few students who have Chinese heritage, but perhaps grew up either in Australia or Malaysia or somewhere and actually speak English more fluently than Chinese, but they pretty much all of them have had exposure to Chinese from an early age. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, yeah, do you have another question or comment? All right. Can I ask another question? I mean, so for your course, right, for the English to Chinese translation, and then I believe that all the students, they have very proficient the language skill, right? So, I mean, do you think that this kind of flipped classroom way is more, can also be applicable to the maybe Mandarin language teaching, maybe at a bit of what, just lower level, that means not at the very high advanced level. For yours is a very advanced level, so then the students can do the study by themselves, right? So do you have a suggestion? That means how do we apply this kind of way to the language, Mandarin language teaching, online teaching also? Yeah,
Well, I think the flipped classroom design is suitable, applicable, definitely, even for the beginners level of Chinese, general Chinese courses. And in fact, our first year written and spoken Chinese courses already had a flipped classroom, even long before our course did, 2 years ahead of us. So we produce a short grammar video, like 7-8 minutes long, and we give them 2 extra readings or videos that are about cultural or social application of the language. So all up, students only need to put in 20 to 30 minutes to complete the pre-class or flipped classroom. And then they, kind of like Angela's design, they would do a pre-class quiz before they come to the lecture. And in the lecture, we exercise the grammar and all the relevant points again. But students commented that they feel like they are more ready to come to class if they feel like things are more contextualized for them to go into deep learning.
Yeah, so I think actually this way requires more time from both the teachers and the students, right? So students also devote more time. Yeah, they have to do a lot of pre-class, pre-class preparation.
Yes and no, because some students actually say they can spend less time reviewing if they did review.
If they
It's all in a different way.
reviewing.
Okay, good. Okay, so okay, any other comments? Let me see. Yeah, we have 2 more minutes. Okay.
So Yen-Ying, you've actually been involved in developing the materials for the first and
language course.
Second year as well?
Yes, I have been developing the second year courses as well. It's set up differently again because students are almost in the upper intermediate level, so they can handle a lot. And I actually chose a much simpler way to build the online modules. I just use PowerPoint, but I recorded every single sentence. And also I sort of incorporate quizzes in a very primitive ways. Right, just 3 questions. Okay, tell me what the answer is, and you can see the answer in the next slide. And it's proved to be effective. And in fact, when I ask the students, well, do you think you're happy with PowerPoint? Isn't it boring? Don't you want some Articulate or Spark or whatever? And they thought about, yeah, you got the point, but I'm happy with the PowerPoint. So it's really about the matching of the platform, the online tool and your course, and what you want to deliver.